Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Hello, and welcome back to Big Mouth, and you can keep this and any other conversation I ignite going over on my Twitter, @MoviesTVMad, my Vero, @BigMouth1, and the extension to this channel is my Instagram with bite-sized videos throughout the day, Big Mouth. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of the dceu Daily, and you are very welcome, my friends and my enemies. Now, you all know what the biggest portion of today's dceu Daily is going to be. I am not John Campier. I am not Collider. I am not IGN. I am an independent YouTuber who uses a basic laptop with the basic built-in camera and mic in his equipment. I'm not here to be flashy. I'm not here to try and say and do things to garner clicks and get more subscribers. I'm not even the fandom menace who do not believe in what they're saying. They're just doing it because it's an echo chamber and because it's making them a hell of a lot of money. But I do have an inside track in what goes on in this industry. I do know how it works. Now, what offends me is when people talk a load of shit about this industry, which is both wonderful and awful, hideous and glorious, like all industries, right? You don't know what you're talking about. Sit back down and let the big boys and girls do the talking, right? So one thing's for sure, Superman means a hell of a lot to Warner Brothers. Always has. We wouldn't be in this situation with Aquaman, Wonder Woman, or even Batman. But Superman means a hell of a lot to this studio where you're saying, hang on a minute, Mick, how can that be so after Justice League? Do you not think that once the shareholders of Warner Brothers saw the Justice League movie and what they did to Henry's Superman, they weren't disgusted? But by that time, it had to go out. There were schedules. They couldn't pull it anymore, right? They were as disgusted in what Sugihara did as we were. So what they've been trying to do since 2017 is try and create a situation where we can have Superman back and he can get the biggest audience he can have and have the greatest movie. Now, we all know what happened last night or during the day yesterday or wherever you are apart from the world. Again, Henry Cavill has done a proper visual vocal interview with a bunch of people promoting his new series, the Netflix series, The Witcher. Now, if he wanted to, he could have said to them, I'm not talking about Superman, I'm not talking about the Snyder Cut, but I'm going to do it. I want to clarify my position. So we're going to listen to the audio here of Henry clarifying his position.
Such a fan of your work, and thank you very much. I think Man of Steel is an absolute masterpiece that I've seen 35 million times.
You and me both, man.
I think you are genuinely the greatest Superman to ever live, and I want you to continue playing the character.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to know your thoughts real fast, if you had any. I know you're waiting for this question all day, but what are your thoughts on people being so vocal about the Snyder Cut, and is it something that you have seen, or would you want to see it?
I have not seen any Snyder Cut. I don't know if there's anything that exists that is a Snyder Cut. I'm sure there's footage out there which has probably been pieced together over the years. I'm always interested to see how that stuff turns out, but that is very much a chapter of my past. I would rather talk about what is going to happen in the future, the future of Superman, how I can express that character from the comic books, which ties in nicely to Man of Steel. Man of Steel, I really like that movie, and I'd like to be able to tell the story where it was left at that point.
Can we get that?
I can tell you nothing.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so awesome if that happens.
It would indeed be awesome.
This character doesn't necessarily fit in, and there's this idea they keep calling him a...
So the rest of it is him talking about The Witcher, comparing The Witcher to Batman, and Superman being a kind of detective but having superpowers as well. So this is where he's being misinterpreted. First of all, he says, now let's get this straight. Henry Cavill knows damn well there's a completed cut with special effects, music and all, of a Snyder Cut of Justice League. He knows that, but he has to be democratic. Now, first of all, let me be straight here, because a lot of you are comparing the support of Gal Gadot, Ben Affleck, Jason Momoa, and Ray Fisher, the Cyborg guy, to Henry's non-support, so-called non-support of Release the Snyder Cut. Ray Fisher, what has Ray Fisher actually done since Justice League? This is not me being disrespectful. This is me being honest. He doesn't give a shit about sacrificing his career. He'd rather be loyal to Zack. Do you know what, my son? I respect you for that, because I want to be loyal to Zack as well. But predominantly, I'm a DC and a Superman fan, and I've never lied about that. This is a channel, and this daily video is about my honest opinions about what's going on in the world of DC, right? And that's what it's always going to be. Now, I could lose a lot of subscribers, and I couldn't give a shit. I'm here, even if I'm talking to myself, I'm here to say what I want to say. So let's look at it. So Ray Fisher hasn't particularly got a big career. Doesn't matter to him. Jason Momoa is going to be in June. He's got umpteen projects signed up. He's going to be next year, or I don't know yet. I think next year or the year after, start filming Aquaman 2, right? His career is signed, sealed, and delivered. Gal Gadot has got more first look deals to look at than she knows what to do with. Ben Affleck is an Academy Award-winning director, right? He's an actor who can choose anything. Even after Justice League, even after BVS, nobody cared in the industry. They love Ben Affleck, for Christ's sake. Him and Matt Damon came in with one of the greatest original screenplays in the history, Good Will Hunting. So Ben Affleck said they can afford to support this movement, right? And you know what? We can afford to support this movement because we don't have to sacrifice anything. Guess what? We're fans with jobs, families, money in the bank. Most of us, some of us may not have jobs and money in the bank, and I respect that, right? And the point is, we have nothing to lose from supporting Release the Snyder Cut. This young man has. He's 37 years old, and all he's been trying to do, he's been fighting for a direct sequel of Man of Steel longer than we've been fighting to release the Snyder Cut. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that before you lose your shit and start trolling this talented young gentleman who's a brilliant actor and who's never abused anyone, called anyone toxic, unlike some actors, right? So at the end of the day, he said, it's something I'd like to see at some point, but I want to focus on Superman's future. So he's not saying he's not interested in the Snyder Cut. Now, there's another mini interview, which I'm not going to play, where they asked him why he didn't, hashtag on November the 17th, release the Snyder Cut. He made a joke about missing his moustache and not wanting to be reminded of all of that. Of course, he's not being honest. Henry Cavill is a man who is owned by Netflix, who is owned, basically, by his management team, right? And who is owned by Warner Brothers. He's definitely... Listen, this would be so much easy for Henry Cavill just to come out and say, release the Snyder Cut. He'd never play Superman again. He'd get up to other roles, but he doesn't care about that. He wants to play Superman because he loves this character as much as I do and as much as you do. Now, some of you may love Zack Snyder more than Superman. I'm sorry and I apologise about this. I love Zack. I feel his pain. He was treated disgustingly by Warner Brothers, mainly by Kevin Sujihara. But at the end of the day, my main thing is Superman. And so is this guy. This guy has been fighting since 2013 for a direct sequel of Man of Steel. Why, he's got people like Grace Randolph saying he's negotiating for more money. Disgusting. And all this young man wanted to do was give the fans a direct sequel. You all love Man of Steel, right? But still, you're attacking this man because he won't sacrifice that opportunity to do that. He keeps on saying it. I want to play Superman again. I want to echo the comics. He wants all the fans to love the sequel, right? He's confessed that he's watched Man of Steel so many times. He loves Man of Steel. Some of you are angry because he didn't say he loves BVS. Of course he's not going to say he loves BVS. BVS is a divisive movie as much as I love it, but Man of Steel is my favourite Snyder DCEU movie. I prefer it to Batman v Superman. I'll be honest again, if I lose subscribers, fuck it. I don't care. Because I'm really angry about the reaction. But as soon as I saw this video, I knew a lot of you would go through the roof. Here's the takeaway. This is what I'm going to assume. I don't know anything, but as I said on the top of this video, I know the mechanics of this industry. This is a man who signed a deal to play Superman in a direct sequel to Man of Steel. I believe this is a film that will be written by J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio. That's what I believe. And directed by J.J. Abrams. That's clear. It's clear that Zack Snyder will not be involved in this film. Now, a lot of interesting things have happened because after November the 17th, DC and Warner Brothers already followed Zack Snyder. So I suppose you could say maybe he will be directing Man of Steel. But after this interview, something's very clear to me. That Warner Brothers, despite all the money they could make from the Snyder Cut of Justice League, are not interested. They're looking forward and not backwards. Do you understand what Henry said? I'd rather focus on the future of Superman. And that is what they are telling him to say. It's pretty clear that elements of that Variety article weren't just echo pieces that we already know. Most of it was. Some of it had an element of truth. The whole narrative of the article was to focus on the future of the DCEU, of DC films. And I think this interview sums it up to me. And there's no doubt here that Henry Cavill will be in a direct sequel to Man of Steel. And I believe this could even be announced before this year is out. My takeaways from this is that this is a very determined young actor. This is he's 37, but he's like 10 years younger than me. So to me, he's a young man, right? But basically, that's my takeaway from this whole situation. That Henry Cavill is a great Superman. He wants to play Superman. Of course he knows there's a Snyder Cut. Of course he knows it's more than a bunch of scenes that have been pieced together. Of course he knows there's a final cut. But this is a man talking from the mouth of two entities, Netflix and Warner Brothers. Netflix have said that, no, I don't know if Netflix have said this. I believe Netflix have said to him, and his agent have said to him, shut the fuck up about the Snyder Cut. And I think his agent and him have fought really hard again, like they did in the Men's Health magazine, to be able to make comments. As I say, this is probably not the situation that Netflix wanted. But once Netflix brought Cavill in for The Witcher, they knew ultimately this was going to come up. Ultimately, him and his agent want to talk about Superman. They want to talk about release the Snyder Cut. They want to make their positions clear. But mainly, they are making the positions of the studio pretty clear to me. That they have no intention at this moment in time of releasing the Snyder Cut. They want to look forward and not look back. So, for people like me and you who are desperate to see the Snyder Cut, this is a very devastating blow. It is. There's no question about that. But here's the thing. How far are we willing to go here? Because I know a lot of people who are part of the Release the Snyder Cut movement are maybe not necessarily pure DC purists. Superman purists. So it doesn't really matter to you if you boycott the rest of the DC movies, DC comics. But a lot of us who support Release the Snyder Cut, like myself, are really, really diehard DC fans, where diehard Superman is my character from any franchise, from any comic, from any novelization. It's Superman for me. From the moment I saw Superman the movie, I loved this character. And my agenda is to see a Superman movie. And this video doesn't really upset me. It excites me because it tells me that Henry Cavill will be making a Superman movie, a direct sequel to Man of Steel with J.J. Abrams. That, my friends, is really exciting because through J.J. Abrams, who is a good friend of Zack Snyder's, there will be this drive to really be faithful to what Zack wanted. But in terms of Zack Snyder, in terms of the Snyder Cut, Warner Brothers are like that guy, that good-looking guy who just had a one-night stand with that girl. They don't want to go there again. That's the takeaway from me. They don't want to go back to Zack Snyder again. Maybe they'll use him for other projects. But let me be clear to you. There is a statue of Superman at Warner Brothers. Superman means a hell of a lot to them. The pride they had when Superman the movie came out was big. That really put them on the map. That was one of the things in their history that made them the studio they are today. and they've always prided themselves in being very careful with Superman. Now, in terms of Superman 1 to 4, they just distributed those movies. They didn't have a carte blanche kind of ownership of it. They owned the name, but they allowed the Sorkinds and the Cannon Group to do Superman 4. They allowed the Sorkinds to do Superman 1 to 3. So those mistakes wasn't on Warner Brothers, right? Superman Returns was their baby. That clearly mistakes were made there. They have to take responsibility, but they truly believed doing a direct sequel to Superman 2 was the way to go. They believed that people still loved Donner's version and people would come in for this. This is a mistake again because the die-hard purists didn't come in to watch that movie. So then, finally, after they decided to cancel Smallville because they felt Smallville couldn't continue with a Superman movie legacy series, so they decided to say, Smallville's too popular, we've got to rest it, so we can have a successful Superman franchise. So they wanted Christopher Nolan, literally, they wanted Christopher Nolan to direct and write Man of Steel with David Goyer. They wanted the same team that gave them the success for the Dark Knight trilogy to do it for Superman. And guess what? Nolan got all tore on them and said, you know what? I'm not capable of making a great Superman movie. He was very honest. He didn't believe. He thought his limitations as a director would make this problematic. He was perfect for Batman. He knew what he was doing with Batman, but he didn't feel comfortable with Superman. So he brought in Zack Snyder. He brought in Zack Snyder because he believed Zack Snyder could make a real-world Superman like he made a real-world Batman. The problem with that is there's half of the... Have you noticed everyone's got an opinion about Superman, but not everyone cares about Wonder Woman or Aquaman, right? Superman and Batman and Spider-Man are the three iconic superheroes. The world knows them, and everybody has an opinion on them. As we've had these kind of, these opinions of Superman since the Variety piece, right? Everyone has an opinion. He's so massive. He's so big. His legacy stretches over 80 years. I want you to think about that. So every time someone makes a big mistake with Superman, there's no hiding place. It's like the football team or the soccer team, you Americans call it, Manchester United. Their legacy goes back to the Munich air tragedy, where half the team died, but eventually they went on. That manager, Sir Matt Busby, after nearly dying himself, rebuilt a club, and they won the European Cup. And from that moment on, everyone has an opinion of Manchester United, even people who hate the club. And this is kind of an example of Superman. Everyone has an opinion about Superman. This is not just some superhero that doesn't mean anything. Scott Mendelsohn tried to allude to that, didn't he? Tried to say, oh, well, he just wears these silly pajamas, because he doesn't get it. He's not a film fan. He's a numbers cruncher. He's a box office analyst, right? But we the fans who are so involved and engulfed in this situation, understand it. Everyone has an opinion about Superman. So when Man of Steel came out, it divided audiences. But Man of Steel is very interesting and very different to BVS, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. BVS is an indie type superhero movie. Even the little credits, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, tell you that. It's very indie. It's not in your face. It's an indie type movie, and Warner Brothers themselves weren't confident about this crossing $1 billion. That's why they weren't honest about it in their marketing. Their first mistake. But there's a difference between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Man of Steel is more of a popcorn crutching kind of blockbuster, right? With action, things falling all over the place, the effects, everything. Now it still has a deep kind of fleshed out story. And they're talking about our world, how Krypton is destroyed, and how if we're not careful, our world will be destroyed, and we're going to have a planet trying to recreate Earth. This is what Zod's trying to do. So there's a big kind of commentary in that film, but ultimately, if you're not too bright and you don't see that, you still see Superman flying awesomely. Brilliant effects. It's a great Superman movie. in its own right. Now, a lot of people don't like that. Superman purists don't like Man of Steel, but a hell of a lot more people in the mainstream audience enjoyed Man of Steel rather than BVS. Now, they can't delete BVS. All they can do is continue from the theatrical cut of Justice League, because they're clearly not willing to release the Snyder Cut. They're looking forward, not backwards. Again, I want to see the Snyder Cut. I would do anything to see the Snyder Cut, but one thing I will not do is throw Henry Cavill under the bus. He's our hope to have continuing Superman movies. He's a great Superman. He looks great in the glasses. He looks great in the costume. I support him as Superman. And I think to see his passion, and what I like about this interview, this is not a blundering actor, I don't know what to say, I don't know, or I've got to toe the company line. This is a guy who says, look, basically, some of the stuff he says is false. Of course it is. Well, I'm sure there's clips of the Snyder Cut out there, or clips that have been put together. He knows that's not true. But mainly, the main takeaway is, I would like to see it one day, but I want to focus on the future, basically, because I want to play Superman. I don't want to be replaced. I want to do a great Superman movie that focuses on this character, that focuses on the comics. That's what he wants. That's why, bless him, he tried his best to get Warner Brothers to talk to the director of Mission Impossible Fallout, and it didn't work out. I don't think he even got to talk to them. I can't remember exactly what happened there. So this interview, like the Men's Health magazine interview, is very direct. I don't care about anything but playing Superman again, and nothing is going to get in his way. So it really is a great interview, and I think I'm going to just play it for you one more time.
That I'm such a fan of your work, and thank you very much. I think Man of Steel is an absolute masterpiece that I've seen 35 million times.
You and me both, man.
I think you are genuinely the greatest Superman to ever live, and I want you to continue playing the character.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to know your thoughts real fast, if you had any. I know you're waiting for this question all day, but what are your thoughts on people being so vocal about the Snyder Cut, and is it something that you have seen, or would you want to see it?
I have not seen any Snyder Cut. I don't know if there's anything that exists that is a Snyder Cut. I'm sure there's footage out there which has probably been pieced together over the years.
So basically, we can see that Ray Fisher and Jason Momoa are actually friends of Zack Snyder and Deb Snyder. They're friends. Henry Cavill was just an actor who worked with Zack Snyder. He doesn't dislike him. He's not disloyal, but they're not friends. He has no loyalty to Zack Snyder. And him having no loyalty to Zack Snyder and putting his career and his opportunity to play Superman again before any loyalty to Zack Snyder is not him being an arsehole. It's him being a realist and him wanting to continue in his career as an actor. But he could drop Superman and say, oh, Superman's in my past. But he's not saying that. He's determined to play him again. Kudos to him for that.
I'm always interested to see how that stuff turns out, but that is very much a chapter of my past. I would rather talk about what is going to happen in the future, the future of Superman, how I can express that character from the comic books, which ties in nicely to Man of Steel. Man of Steel, I really like that movie.
Man of Steel, I really like that movie. Playing it for you again, and we're doing it in bits and pieces because I'm not confident I've covered everything, and this is so massive and so important that it needs to be covered. So he said he would like to see the Snyder Cut, but right now he wants to focus on the future of Superman. He wants to really display this character. He wants to please everyone. Now, everyone says you can't please everyone, but the moment you stop trying is the moment you should get out of this industry. When when you write something, when I've written something before, I'm developing many scripts and many projects that haven't been greenlit yet, but half of it is self-indulgent and half of it is to please the audience that are going to see it. You've always got to have the whole package there. He clearly wants to be in a Superman movie where everybody loves it and it clears over $1 billion and critics and fans are raving about it. There's a lot of people who believe that Superman film is impossible to make. This is where we're getting all these hot takes. Scott Mendelson said we should give him a rest. No, he's had enough of the rest. I've told you before, sorry at pointing and being rude, but do I point? Yes, I point. But The whole point is Superman should be oversaturated. He should be everywhere because he's that awesome. This is what I mean with my concept of him being over 1,000 years old. He's got such a past. There's so many stories to tell. And Henry wants to do a Superman film that pleases people, that entertains people, that excites people. We've had Man of Steel, and I'm sure that this direct sequel will be very loyal to that vision. And as I said before, the story isn't Zack Snyder's. That's Christopher Nolan's and David Goyer's. Let's remember that. The look of the film, the way it looks, the way the actors perform, that's all on Zack Snyder. Beautiful. But just remember, Zack didn't have anything to do with the story or the script of Man of Steel.
Like to be able to tell the story where it was left at that point.
Can we get that?
I can tell you nothing.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so awesome if that happens.
It would indeed be awesome.
His character doesn't necessarily fit in.
So basically, he wants to be in a Man of Steel sequel that literally continues straight after Man of Steel. Now, this is interesting. Are J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio working on a direct sequel to Man of Steel that will continue directly after Man of Steel? So how would this work? Now, I don't have the mathematics. I don't know how long after... what is the gap between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman? Because obviously we see the Battle of Metropolis through Batman's eyes. But what happens after that, I can't remember what the gap is, to be honest with you. So is there something else? Is there actually a story to tell after Man of Steel and in between BVS? I think possibly there is an interesting story to tell. Look, I don't know how you do this, but with J.J. Abrams involved, you've got a man who was able to fantastically in Star Trek 2009 create another timeline for Star Trek, which means the original series and everything that had been done before existed, but what JJ did, put his characters in an alternate timeline. And guess what DC Comics is famous for? Multiverses. So there are some interesting things. So he's very, very interested, but I think he's going to do it, in a direct sequel to Man of Steel, and he wants it to continue as soon as Man of Steel finished. Can this be done? Very, very interesting. Now, we know in the Snyder Cut, at the end, that Swanwick reveals himself as Martian Manhunter. But is there a way, because the public haven't seen the Snyder Cut, so it's kind of, basically, you can do stuff that was in there. You can take stuff that was in there and put it in this Superman film. This film could have Martian Manhunter being revealed to Superman. There could be a dynamic. There could be a relationship there. Now, because a lot of things aren't referenced in Batman v Superman to what Superman's been doing after Man of Steel, there are a lot of things to play with. So very, 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 very interesting. And I'm actually so excited. Now, on the Snyder Cut, and what does this mean for the Snyder Cut? Right, I've said everything about Superman, and I stand with Henry. And no abuse or no toxicity is going to change that. But I am still fighting for the Snyder Cut, and so should you. Keep on hashtagging it, because there's still an opportunity to get this released. This is trending all the time. I want to see the Snyder Cut. But Henry, in case of Henry Cavill right now, Netflix don't want him to really go there. We know that. He's not in the same position as the other Justice League actors. So keep the faith. Please think about not abusing and throwing Henry under the bus, because he really is truly a great guy. I think if you're a fan of Man of Steel, you should actually be so excited that Henry Cavill potentially has signed up to do a direct sequel of Man of Steel. What's not to be excited about? Think on that. Yes, I actually found out, and you lot probably know this already. I'm not one for details, but basically the time frame between the end of Man of Steel and the beginning of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is 8 months, which means there's plenty of avenue for a story, a direct sequel to Man of Steel. There's an 8 months gap what happened now. We know that between the end of Man of Steel and the beginning of BVS, that Lois and Clark move in together. What happened there? So that's very interesting. Did they do that on purpose? Did they always mean to do a direct sequel before BVS for Man of Steel? So the potential is there, and I believe this is happening. So instead of getting upset, just listen to what Henry said. He would like to see the Snyder Cut at some point, but he wants to focus on the future of Superman. Clearly, the reason he hasn't hashtag released the Snyder Cut is because Netflix and Warner Brothers don't want him to. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the independence that the other Justice League actors do. That's my opinion. But if you love Man of Steel, be very excited, because from what Henry is saying, we are definitely getting a direct sequel to Man of Steel, directed by J.J. Abrams, written by J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio, and starring the great Henry Cavill. Do I wish that could come back and do it? Yes, but it's not a perfect world. He's still working, and that's enough for me. And just keep on hashtagging release the Snyder Cut. Now, talking about that, yes, I've been doing this video for half an hour just talking about Superman, and I could do a 24-hour one, but I won't, don't worry. So Chris Terrio has been talking. I can't believe I'm asking you this. All right, you wrote Justice League. I'm under the impression the Snyder Cut exists, and it's privately being shown, but it's not what people think it is, in that there's no effects or post-production. The thing is, this is Terrio, I can't really speak to that at this moment, but I promise that I will talk to you about that very thing at some point after this film. Well, we'll have a lot to talk about on a future date, the interviewer says. Yes, we do. We seriously do. So, it sounds like Chris Terrio really wants to talk about this subject, or is he just kind of fobbing the interviewer off? Will he talk about it? Basically, Disney, like Netflix with Henry Cavill, are not going to have Chris Terrio talking about the bloody Snyder Cut. The bloody Snyder Cut, well, you know what I mean. The Snyder Cut, when they've got a film to promote, they've got enough problems, enough divisiveness within their own fandom. And I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I've been watching it since A New Hope. But the point is, they're not going to have Chris Terrio spilling stuff about the Snyder Cut. He's under contract. He will be talking about this at some point. So now this is really, really interesting. What will he say? Because, as you know, my theory is he's going to co-write a direct sequel to Man of Steel with J.J. Abrams. So, and I've heard a few whispers about this. So, what do we think he's going to say? It's very unlikely that he's going to say anything to upset Warner Brothers. I think he'll say a cut exists. I think he'll say he's seen the cut. I think he'll say he's still got a nice relationship with Zack Snyder. But obviously, there's a lot for him to talk about, because basically, Whedon rewrote his script, but he's still credited. So basically, that means if you're credited in the credits, you get paid, no matter anything you've heard. And finally today, on Wednesday's edition of the DCEU Daily, yes, I'm sorry, it is the last chapter of today's videos. Next Door's wife is in a dire need of a scene to. Her husband isn't great, you see, and I've got to do my bit for charity. Relax. Life's fun when you're me. Anyway, we're talking about Joe Manganiello in the final part of today's DCEU Daily. And he has been talking to E! Entertainment. Yeah, who would want to talk to them? Anyway, he has. Why Joe Manganiello wanted justice for his Justice League shoot with Snyder Cut, released a Snyder Cut post. 2 years after Justice League premiered, actor Joe Manganiello joined the fellow DC Universe stars like Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot in posting the hashtag release the Snyder Cut to social media. Fans saw the move as a joint nudge to Warner Brothers to release the heavily rumoured Zack Snyder version of the 2017 critical flop. Manganiello, who played Deathstroke during an end credit scene in the film, recently told EW that he has not seen the rumoured cut of the film. His post on the anniversary was more a memorial to the Deathstroke character that could have been. So basically, it doesn't matter why he did it, but he's it seems to me here he's shitting himself. Obviously Warner Brothers have had a word, his people have had a word. You better go and do an interview and say you only wanted to do it for an anniversary, to commemorate the anniversary, which is disappointing. You know, when people go at, Henry for not doing Release the Snyder Cut, this guy's saying, I only did it to commemorate. I didn't do it to get it released. I didn't do it to support anyone, and that's disappointing. So I'd rather Henry's stance, because at least he's being honest and direct. This guy, it basically doesn't even believe in the cause. But it doesn't matter. Someone who was involved in Justice League, who was going to play a prominent role in Ben Affleck's The Batman, hashtagged it. It's all that matters. It's too late, mate. Even if you delete it, you did it. It's over. Thank you for the support. And the millions of your followers now know about Release the Snyder Cut. So thanks. Anyway. His post on the anniversary was more a memorial to the Deathstroke character that could have been. Anyway, we go on. Manganiello's post featured 10 photos of his Deathstroke, Mr. Wilson character while shooting in Monaco for Justice League. The actor tells EW Ray Fisher, Cyborg and Christina Wren, Major Carrie Faust, also posted on social media for the anniversary. I didn't know who started that, Manganiello says of the Release the Snyder Cut hashtag that was trending on Twitter on November the 17th. Because of the cancellation of Batman and the various other projects that my character was going to be in, I never got to release them. Snyder originally dropped out as director of Justice League during production for personal reasons. Yeah, he got sacked. That's personal, isn't it? Director Joss Whedon, who directed the MCU darling Avengers Age of Ultron, what? Anyway, was brought on to finish the project. The movie debuted and immediately alienated DC fans, at least 180,000 of them who wanted more from the all-star cast. The lackluster feedback and less fan-favourable box office returns led to a considerable shake-up at Warner Bros. According to Variety, Justice League producer John Burke, who worked heavily on the project, exited the company. DC and Warner Bros. Also began rethinking having each DC movie feed into a shared universe. A Deathstroke standalone film starring Manganiello that even last year actor said was still in the works may have been a casualty of those changes. Here's what Joe has to say again. I honestly wanted to stop talking about it. I don't really like talking about things that didn't happen, Manganiello said of the Snyder Cut. I have a ton of photos from the set photographer that were never going to be released, that were sitting on my computer. One day I thought, if I don't put them out now, they're never going to come out. I might as well get them out to the public. At a fundraiser in March 2019, Snyder confirmed the director's cut exists. A fan video posted to social media which brewed the pot just enough for hopeful fans to start the Release the Snyder Cut movement. There's hope that it may one day come out, but it's not likely to be anytime soon. And that is the level of the journalism at E! Entertainment. Right. The failure of Justice League, the theatrical cut, doesn't mean that Warner Brothers shouldn't have continued with an interconnected universe. They decided, because of Justice League, let's just do good, epic standalone movies, which is cool. It's not a bad thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with having an interconnected universe, which, of course, that's exactly what Zack Snyder was doing. Man of Steel fed straight into Batman v Superman. Batman v Superman fed straight into Suicide Squad. But then after Batman v Superman, we saw that Wonder Woman was already very standalone. Apart from an email message between Diana and Bruce Wayne and the Wayne Enterprises truck, there was really no connectivity. But Wonder Woman, one of my favourite CBMs of all time. And then Justice League, what can I say? But the failure of Justice League, the film failed because they kicked the man out and cut his film to pieces and rewrote elements of that film. That's why it failed. It didn't mean that an interconnected universe wouldn't have worked, but what they're doing is clearly working. $1 billion for Aquaman. Shazam made 4 times its budget. The Joker is just a whirlwind success. So what they are doing obviously is working, but I think they've got really, really big plans of a multiverse. So get excited, and the Black Adam movie, who's going to have so many DC characters in it, is awesome. So they really are heading for a great future. Things are working out since Justice League. But on Joe Manganiello, this is I was saving this. I didn't even read this. This is the first time I've read it, right? This is basically a guy saying, I'm not part of your cause. Leave me alone. Don't fuck with my career. Right? I only did it to commemorate the anniversary. For me, that's worse than anything Henry Cavill's said and done. In fact, Henry's been very direct and very honest. He's tried his best. His intention is to make a Superman movie. He wants to please all fans, and that's it. This guy's saying, I don't like talking about things that don't happen. No, because it's got no profit for you, has it? You want to talk about the future. You released it. You hashtagged it, my friend. It's out there. It looks like you support the movement, but it doesn't matter. You hashtagged it. You have millions of followers. It's great. It is disappointing that he said this stuff, but never mind. Joe Manganiello's great, and he would have been a great Deathstroke. So, if you like the video, smash the like button, share the video, share the channel, and please comment down below. I love reading them. I'll like them and love them. I appreciate you all. But let me know what you think about Henry Cavill's interview. Please be honest. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. Just be constructive about your opinions, and I'll definitely like and love them and try and reply to a couple of them. But the interview he gave yesterday, last night, or whatever time zone you're in, was massive. It was massive because it tells me that Henry Cavill will be playing Superman, Cal, in a direct sequel to Man of Steel, written and directed by J.J. Abrams. And that does not trigger me. That, my friends, excites me. See you again tomorrow.